EA is now on Twitch. Join us Wednesday nights when Alistair reads a bedtime story, and Sunday mornings for a few hours of chill casual gaming, plus interviews, special guests, pickup streams, and more. Visit twitch.tv/EA Podcasts and follow us to be notified when we go live, plus access VODs of past broadcasts.
Escape Pod, Episode 959. This Little War of Ours. By Arden Baker.
Hello and welcome to Escape Pod. I'm your host, Mer Lafferty. Today's story is This Little War of Ours by Arden Baker. Born and raised in Melbourne, Australia, Arden Baker is a lapsed translator and emerging writer of short science fiction and fantasy. After spending time living and working in China, he returned to his home city where he now works as a consultant and a language teacher. In his spare time, he drinks overpriced gin, brews mead, plays tabletop RPGs, and runs a small speculative fiction writing collective, Meridian Australis. He has previously been published in Aurelius and Intrepidus Inc. It's narrated for us by the team of Scott Campbell and Graham Dunlop. Graham is a software solution architect. Despite his somewhat mixed accent, he was born in Australia. He loves the spoken word and believes it has the ability to lift the printed word above and beyond cold words on a page. He and Barry J. Northern founded Cast of Wonders in 2011 and can be found narrating or hosting the occasional episode or working on projects behind the scenes. Graham lives in Melbourne, Australia with his wife Amanda and crazy boy dog Jake. Scott Campbell searches for battles that will increase his skills for the battles to come. The slush pile underneath Pseudopod Towers is a worthy opponent. He also writes, directs, and performs for the queer, in every sense of the word, cabaret, the Mickey Faust Club. He also writes far too infrequently at the official online home of the Sleep Deprivation Institute and pop culture website needcoffee.com. He lives in Florida with absolutely no pets. Just because the world's about to end doesn't mean we can't have story time.
Secure priority, communique, distribution, solitaire, keyword, masquerade, source, pentacle. From triple intent to asphodel, begin content.
Even if you're my enemy, I'm glad to hear from you. Given that you're the only person I know who'd do something so brazen, I don't think there's any question about identity here. Let's maintain some modicum of military decorum and stick to our call signs. Most of my compatriots are still in denial about the whole extinction-level event thing. I don't think the brain was meant to handle these sorts of problems, no matter how much wetware we install or how many simulations we run. At the end of the day, we're cavemen who worked out how to make explosives, living and dying in the cosmic blink of an eye. So when your CNC decided that mutually assured destruction was the best possible outcome for a little war, I don't think he really thought this stuff through. Not properly, anyway. It's been, 2 years since that monumentally stupid decision? And here we are. You in that bunker somewhere under Antarctica, I assume? And me buried under hundreds of meters of rocks in what was once Siberia. Scans show a charming surface temperature of negative 43 degrees Celsius and a stunning mix of sulfur, oxygen, and heavy metal particulates in place of our breathable atmosphere. There's no way out now, for any of us. Our geothermal energy backups are eventually going to run dry. The impact broke plate tectonics, and the physicists haven't got a clue how to even begin fixing that. And once they go, we all freeze. Human popsicles at the end of the world. So how are things at your end?
Flash, flash, flash. Command sequence number T0210 Zeta. Error. Archival functions timed out. From Asphodel to Triple Intent. Begin content.
I'm glad I managed to get through to you. Piggybacking off the few satellites that haven't been shot out of the sky and then riding down to the Eastern Bloc via background radiation wasn't the easiest thing I've ever done. But there's fuck all else to do down here. You're right, it's Antarctica. Been cold here for a long time, so the impact winter hasn't really exacerbated things for us. Doesn't change that we're also doomed, obviously, but just wanted to point out that I have in fact gotten used to the cold, finally. Bet that one took you by surprise, hey? No more sunning ourselves in the Maldives after a solid op. I think my skin's finally started to forget what sunlight feels like. As for the CNC, you're not wrong. We actually assumed that you had at least a couple of double or triple agents running him for a while, but it turns out he was just mentally unstable. More than anticipated. Who'd have thought that an absolute dictatorship would have a single point of failure? I jest, but it does irk me that between us running ops internally and my counterparts over in your corner of this hellhole, we couldn't figure out a way to stop him from knocking that fucking rock into us. We're meant to be pretty good at this stuff. Our guys estimate 3 more years before we shuffle off our mortal coils. I'd imagine it's similar for you. I'll try and ride as often as I can. They're rationing our uplink use as though that's going to somehow stave off the inevitable, but I'll figure out a way. Keep your eye on the skies.
Knock, knock. From Triple Intent to Asphodel. Begin content.
Well, you're right. There really isn't much to do here. Hope you got a keen eye for thermal intake patterns on those over-the-horizon scanners you have aimed at us. And I hope you remember Morse code. Things are about as good as they can be down here, given the circumstances. The SecCom offed himself a few days ago, and there's talk about what to do with his body. Some voices are arguing full military honors. Others are saying he needs to be put into the recycle with the rest of our biomatter. Don't know why it's even an argument at this point, but I think we all need a distraction. I'm just mulling things over in my head, like in the academy days. Do you remember coffee? I remember studying singles analysis with you until you finally cracked that algorithm, and I think we only managed that with coffee. Imagine what we do with these new stims. I digress. I have questions, and I'm hoping to get some answers that make a lick of sense. When you guys hit Mars, the gloves came off. Given that was a joint operation, I thought it was off limits. So, 1. What was the purpose of the first strike on Mars? 2. How many of our operators did you actually manage to turn? 3. Was Damarung your idea? Yours an internal distrust.
SecCon Def reference T0911 Omicron. Unbound parameter. From Asphodel to Triple Intent. Begin content.
That's no way to treat a friend. Let's start with the easy one. Damarung was me, yes. You know my penchant for absolute chaos and sensitive dependence on initial conditions. We figured a strike to the comms relay would scramble your logistics enough to bring a swift end to the interstellar theatre. We were wrong, obviously. As for the operatives, a magician never reveals his tricks. But at risk of scope insensitivity, I can categorically confirm that most of your assets ended up working for us, or swinging from a rope by the end of the war. We ran out of freeze-dried coffee, officially, a month into this assignment. I still have a stash that I've kept hidden, and every now and then I smell it, and I remember you. I miss you.
Secure priority communique, distribution, Antares, keyword, Gethsemane, source, swords. From triple intent to Asphodel, begin content.
Sorry for the delayed response. Really exciting events happening here. A magma cascade that could present a real hope for survival, TM. That's the line they're running with anyway. Might extend our lives a few weeks. End of the war. Aren't we still fighting? As much as one can in these circumstances anyway. It really does feel like we've lived through too much. I remember the sound of rain on the fields outside your mother's house. I remember the taste of real octopus grilling on the charcoal at that little barbecue joint down from the office in Sydney. But I also remember the acrid smell of war and all its plastic bitterness. Even that is preferable to this, though. Endless monotony. We need to expire. Mars was beautiful. I visited it once, the arcology on the slope of Olympus Mons. Built it into the rain shadow. 2 massive spires scraping the few scant clouds as we managed to create up there. Red dirt was endless, but after a terraforming cycle, the sky turned the deepest shade of emerald blue. Reminds me of the view of that hotel in Singapore. I think about those nights in Singapore often. The arguments we had. I replay them in my head and think about how I could have convinced you to stay. I miss you too. But I miss the world even more.
Break. Secure override Upsilon. Breakwaters over Venus. From Asphodel to triple intent. Begin content.
Magma. Truly exciting. If it's any consolation, no one could have stopped me from taking that flight. The regime offered me everything I wanted, and it delivered right up until the big man decided that extinction was preferable to an execution by firing squad. You could always have let us win, you know. Saved us the trouble of burning our planet to ash. The war fighters and tacticians were convinced of a victory right up until the end, and even as your soldiers paraded through the streets of the California metro zone, there was talk of retaliatory strikes that would cripple your economy and give us the upper hand. Having had 2 years to ponder this, even the most cynical of our hawks believe that the receipts show a 92% probability of us winning a war of attrition. I guess that doesn't matter in the slightest, but I just wanted to tell you that you were wrong. Reminiscence aside, I've heard far too much double talk and bickering around here for my liking. Even if you do still have agents walking among us, I can tell you that something is changing. Something has gotten people around here to stop moping and writing terrible poetry, and I don't think it's you. There's word from the SIGINT guys that there's something moving around up there. Chew on that at your next budget meeting.
Secure priority communique. Distribution Highlander. Keyword Macduff. Source Staves. From triple intent to Asphodel. Begin content.
You just can't say that something is moving and then not expect us to send our own drones to investigate. You knew that. And before your auditor turned our hardware into slag, we got the images. It looks like a Mars colony rover. I'm going to come straight out and say it at the risk of sounding incredibly naive. Did anyone on Mars survive? Red team me on this. I don't know how else to explain why an automated rover has suddenly appeared on the surface. Be as honest as you can be, because I don't really have anyone else feeding me information, and to be frank, I trust you more than most. Even if you did side with a megalomaniac over me.
SecCon Def. Reference T1020 Alpha. Error exceeding size limitations. From Asphodel to triple intent. Begin content.
That isn't fair. The choice wasn't about you, it was about the future of our species. Sometimes we need to draw a line, and in that context, the survival of humanity took precedence over my feelings for you. I won't pretend it was an easy decision. As for Mars, I'm going to step this out. If our strike on the colony failed to breach the arcology bunkers, and the colonists were somehow able to seal the bulkheads before a dust storm destroyed their greenhouses, and their power supply wasn't interrupted by magnetosphere discharge, and they had enough reserves to last another cycle before the terraforming cascade took effect, then they could have survived. Parameter-agnostic models suggest this is possible, but on a personal level, this is squarely in bullet hitting another bullet territory. I don't want to be that guy, but you know as well as I do just how destructive hope can be. We don't need this.
Secure priority communique. Distribution Virgo. Keyword constellation. Source chalices. From triple intent to Asphodel. Begin content.
Ever the pessimist. I'm going to tell you that you're being that guy. We don't need the fact of a rescue right now, but we do need the hope of a home to get back to, and failing that presence of that hope, the dream of a brighter world for our children. Whenever I read anything out of our official reports, I put my head in my hands and contemplate suicide. Do you understand what it would do for species-wide morale? Our operating parameters have moved subterranean Mo people from dystopian failure state to optimistic victory condition. I'm going to have to run this up the chain, but I seriously reckon that we go public with this. We can't afford to sit here twiddling our thumbs while there's even the possibility of a continued human presence in the universe and the rescue mission that implies. Hope you're not too cold up there.
Break. Unsecured distribution protocol Amadeus. Send it, send it, send it. From Asphodel to triple intent. Begin content.
Sorry for the delay. Things are getting really strained here. If you want to open that Pandora's box, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but I just don't know what good it'll do. We're going to die here, freezing and in the dark. Does it matter at all if Mars survived?
Secure priority communique. Distribution Hawk. Keyword Peregrine. Source Rings. From triple intent to Asphodel. Begin content.
Telenomic interference confirmed. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am certain, within acceptable parameters, that the Mars arcology survived. Granted, we need to run more tests and see if we can figure out a way to penetrate the ionosphere with our comms laser, but I have confidence that within a few more weeks we will be able to send a data packet to the colony. If anyone is actually alive up there and they're looking for us, then we should get something back. Don't mean to spoil your admittedly morbid plans, but I think that's exciting. The director actually unfroze the last piece of real, genuine steak earlier. We each ate our share, about half a mouthful, and despite the freezer burn, it was the best meal I've ever tasted.
SecCon Def Reference T2301 Gamma Unbound Parameter. From Asphodel to triple intent. Begin content.
Do you remember the times we talked about death? They encouraged us back at the Institute. It made sense, given it was an occupational hazard. I remember that you were always the one who was convinced you'd survive and retire at a ripe old age. I was always somewhat more pragmatic. I figured if I wasn't burned during a run or compromised from an internal affair, that I'd end up going out in a blaze of glory. One last mission. I'm not exactly excited about freezing to death, It's just something I was expecting and something I had made peace with. A punctuation mark at the end of our race. A fitting end for a bunch of apes playing with fire. I'm glad you enjoyed the steak. I don't think we have anything left aside from emergency rations. They figured out a way of spicing them up by adding in a powdered paracetamol and Stims. The bitterness is almost palatable.
Secure priority, communique. Distribution, royal. Keyword, suzerain. Source, cups. From, triple intent. To, asphodel. Begin content.
Only you would be disappointed at the prospect of survival. Fatalistic to a fault. It's been a busy month down here. This is top secret, what isn't? But I feel like you deserve to know. We made contact with Mars. They have asked us who won. Someone has a sense of humor up there. From the single package they sent, it's clear that your strike didn't do anywhere near as much damage as you projected. I'd reboot your simulation farm, or at least fire your numbers guy. They've been expanding the arcology and using the captured ice comets from the belt to provide them with water. The terraforming is proceeded as planned, with ice caps and climate patterns, and soon, breathable air. Maybe all the colony initiative needed was the threat of extinction to get their botanists and climate engineers to finally pull their fingers out and make it happen. We still have to survive until a rescue mission can be attempted. It's another 7 months before the orbit window opens again and they can send a few retrieval ships. If you could manage to sneak a surrender out of your corner of the snowball, then we'll probably bring you along for the ride too. Much love.
SecCon def. Reference unknown. T unknown. From asphodel to triple intent. Begin content.
Isn't this too convenient? Rescue from on high? A failed missile strike? Come on, you've been in this game as long as I have, and you know that nothing is ever as easy as this. Run a multispectral analysis. Red team yourself for once. Look for the holes. You're not as lazy as you were in Melbourne, are you? I know and you know that there is no way our missiles didn't hit. So either 1, your superiors are lying, 2, you're lying, or 3, there is something else up there that's sending you false hope. I don't know which one I'd prefer, to be quite honest.
Interferometric frequency Z9928. Retransmit packet, backbreaker, fastest. Commence transmission mark.
Admit, deviation, link, favor, fax, accent, fraud, neck, revival, basis, drug, expansion, area, intermediate, vehicle. Hope you're getting this. Please ignore the word salad above. I hijacked the jammer packets and hidden this in a chunk that you'll find enticing enough to dig through. One of your other spooks tried to impersonate you. Confused Sydney for Melbourne, a rookie error. Vain attempt to sow mistrust, I assume. At the very least, we need to be a bit more careful now that we're actually going to get out of this alive. Collision is punishable by death in your failed state, last time I checked. As to your comrades' questions, of course we checked. They're up there, and they're coming to get us. The question we grapple with now is, what next? I want, dearly, for us to sit and watch the sunset together like we used to. I want a life where I don't need code names and double talk and wet work. This whole debacle is a chance for us to start again, to really give it a go. We came through hellfire and ruin and the loss of everything, and now we have a chance here to make something new. What do you think? Flood, undermine, indirect, cart, random, railroad, reliable, revolutionary, virgin, mild, dismiss, rule, precedent, cruel, new.
SecCon C in C. Reference T1112 Alpha Triplicate Thread. From Asphodel to Triple Intent. Begin content.
I knew I was inimitable. That bastard did a poor job at imitating my eloquence. Still, had to spike his food for the trouble. We won't be having anyone else interfering now. I've been promoted, and I now get my own private, unmonitored terminal. Who said we can't have career advancements in the new world? A chance for us to start again, as in humans, or us, as in you and I? I have little hope that humans, given the same set of initial conditions, would do anything other than squander their ability to lift an eye to heaven and dream of more. We're much happier clubbing our neighbour over the head and taking what they have. If you're talking about you and me, that's a different kettle of fish. Do you really see a future for us, after all we've done?
Secure priority communique. Distribution Valentine. Keyword Temperance. Source The Lovers. From Triple Intent to Asphodel. Begin content.
There are precious few prospects left for people like you and me. Do you really think we could ever couple with a civilian? With a colonist? Life like ours is usually solitary. You and me have a chance to share in that solitude. The Mars Rescue Team is on approach, and they're going to grab us first. And then they're sending an armed guard to grab you lot. If you can manage to not resist them for long enough for them to bundle you into their transport, then we're all going to get out of here okay. And that means that you and I are going to meet again, face to face, on the sands of the Red Planet. There's something poetic about us meeting on a planet named for the god of war. But I'm not literary enough to bring that out here. So, the most important question of all. When we are on Mars, and we have normal jobs, and we're living as a united species, learning from our mistakes and building a new world for a brighter future. Dinner?
And that was This Little War of Ours by Arden Baker. What this story tells me is that when the big picture is incredibly dire, or even if the war is over and we lost, there's still things and people who can find joy. And dare I say, hope. Almost every time we hear a story of the world ending, quote unquote, we see survivors carrying on as best they can. Which means the world hasn't really ended, if someone can keep going. Life as we know it may end. We may not be able to get the McRib anymore. Getting off track here, but honestly, when the shit goes down, first you hold on to your own life, and then you look to those around you, and then you keep expanding your circle. And if you can find someone to connect with and help, those acts of kindness can keep everything going, even after some semblance of the world is gone. If you'd like to support Escape Pod, please rate or review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite app. We are 100% audience supported, and we count on your donations to keep the lights on and the servers humming. You can now donate via 4 different platforms: Patreon and Ko-fi, search for Escape Artists. On Twitch and YouTube, we're at EA Podcasts. You can also use PayPal through our website, escapepod.org. Patreon subscribers have the access to exclusive merchandise and can be automatically added to our Discord, where they can chat with other fans as well as our staff members. Remember that we are a 501c3 nonprofit, which means that if you are in the US and you donate to us, then it's tax deductible, your employer might match it, and you can do so much more to help out Escape Pod. And our sister podcasts, Podcastle, Pseudopod, Cast of Wonders, Cat's Cast. We're released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. That means don't sell it, don't change it, but do share it, please. Our music is by permission of Daikaiju. Find out more about them at daikaiju.org. That was our show for this week. Our quote comes from Michelle Obama. You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once. But don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. We'll see you next week with more short fiction. Till then, have fun, stay safe, and stay kind.